So let me check if it starts. Yes, we are live.
Okay, you can start. I will mute myself and admit more people.
Hmm. All right, so I'm going to start sharing the screen. Can you see it? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect.
I mean, I can see.
Yes, it's good.
Perfect. So welcome everybody to a new session of the .NET Zurich User Group. First of all, I'd like to give a special thanks to our sponsors offering solutions, Vivify for Texture, and also to our usual places, which we missed so much in these times, Impact Hub Zurich and the Stanford Group. And then to our partners, Azure User Group, .NET Central, .NET Day Switzerland, Swiss Angular, and obviously as well to the Zurich Bern User Group, which I miss the logo here, but I will probably get back to them to ask for it. But I think as we have collaborated, we should put it here. What is the .NET User Group? It's as a group of people that organize events and try to promote the .NET software development technology. It's from developers for developers, and it's meant to share knowledge and create excitement about technology and networking included. And usually when we do things in a physical location, we try to get beer and pizza. But well, today we will try to do some online networking. So if you would like that, we can after the meeting, we will stop the stream and then we will do some online networking with your favorite beverage. Either it's beer, either it's cola or tea, everything you want. Wine works as well. Who are we? Well, that's Michael. Michael, say hi or raise your hand. Yeah. Then we have Powell, a usual collaborator, and you can see him in several meetings, giving a hand or even speaking. We have Nigel, also almost since the beginnings, pretty person helping us. We have Laurent Bougnon, we have Fabian Gosbrink, which is also a seasoned speaker, as well as Laurent and Mark Muller, which probably you know him from several conferences. So it's pretty active group. So thank you all for helping make Zurich Developers User Group what it is today. What do? We do events regularly. We do quality talks with quality speakers and quality content. Usually we do networking and beer. We will try to do it later, as mentioned, online. We do learning while sharing good moments and try to stream and publish events online as the one we are today. What can you do? You can follow us on Twitter, .NET Zurich. You can join our meetup group, tell your peers, help us grow, and propose content and speakers. We have a website here that links to our meetup page. Please, if you like it, join. We also have a YouTube channel. So if we posted it in Twitter, but I will post it in a moment in the chat. Let me see if I can see the chat. Chat. Yep. So let me.
I can do it.
Okay, perfect. Then you do it.
Just go on.
Yes. Then you can propose new content and speakers. We did a lightning talks that was quite a success, and we plan to repeat it maybe every 3 or 4 months. So we will probably do a call for papers again in short. And again, today is about we will join through Zoom or YouTube. We have a fallback that, yeah, it's already put by Michael. Michael, if you could put as well the link to our channel so people can subscribe as well, that would be great. It's on the Twitter. And we will also use Slido here. So I will share link with participants. I will paste it. Here you have the Slido. You can sign in on this app. And if you have any question, please write it there. You can also vote the questions they are favorite, you like the most, you can vote them. And then at the end of the session, we will have a round of questions and responses. And then subscribe to a YouTube channel. We need subscribers. And also any Zoom bombing will be removed right away from the meeting. So you have been advised. Today we have a very special session. If you can read what I'm showing here, because it's really, well, not very clear. The session today is about how to apply containers to, or how to implement, and some architectural approaches for improving testing on all the different layers of the test pyramid, and mostly applied to microservices. But I believe they can be applied to absolutely any kind of tests. Yes.
True. Yeah, you have to put some buzzwords today, like microservice and so on, right?
Yes, to call attention. So far it worked. I mean, it was good. The only thing I'm to blame is that the logo was not really. So I tried to do something like the Pimp my ride, but it doesn't work. So I will put here the proper, more readable format. So sorry for hurting your eyes. That was on me. And this session is delivered by Philippe and Norman. Philippe
Just,
Birbaum and Norman Scheiber.
just as a friendly reminder, after the talk, after we did the Q&A, we will stop the live stream and we can have a proper online meetup where we can all chat a little bit, and you can also chat with the speakers without being on YouTube.
Exactly. So what can I tell about Philippe? Philippe is an architect on Swiss Life, which has his goal of managing a team composed of Norman and Michael, and soon I will be in that team after this weekend. So basically, he's my new boss.
Yeah.
And wait, so I'm very happy to be here since next week, and they are doing quite amazing things for open source. And some of the tools or gizmos they will show today are available at zero cost, available to everybody as open source tools. And Norman is part of the team. He's really active on this. He's one main author of one of the tools he will be showing, and he's like the A team dedicated to help developers in need, providing tools to solve their problems. Right, Norman? Cool. So the agenda today, we will have an introduction, which we're finishing right now, and there will be the event with the introduction from part of, I believe it's Norman or Philip. And then we will climb the test parameter we have here. So we will go seeing architectural practices and tools and coding approaches to solve these problems, and how to do them better with better architecture and better approach and more reusability and less problems. And we will climb the test pyramid on this session. Then we will do a 5-minute pause for a bio break or take a bit more water. And a second part, we will go from the integration test. So they will try to go this part up to finishing the integration test part, and then jump on the more important and always challenged, how to implement the UI test, which I'm pretty curious on that. So that part is what I would say the very on top of the cake. At the end, we will stop and do a bit of mention the next event, and do stop the streaming and do what we call the mix and mingle. So we will maybe stop for 5 minutes and continue, so we can take the drink of our choice. And at the end, we want you, if you have a proposal for a talk, you would like to speak, or you have a friend or colleague that is very good at speaking or has an interesting topic, please contact any of us, either me, Michael, or any of the other user group collaborators. And that's it. Norman, Philip, all yours.
Thank you, Jose, for the nice introduction. Yeah, of course, we are really happy that we can welcome you in the team at Monday. I remember, I think 1 year ago when we did the last meetup was in October as well, Swiss Life, where we met, and good that it took that direction. Quickly, myself, as Jose said, I'm a .NET engineer, architect, working mostly in the .NET space and Azure, building customer-facing applications since I'm in Swiss Life. Otherwise, also passionate about other programming languages like Python. I also try to do UI, but I'm not so successful at that. And otherwise, I play around with my smart home. So I'm going to share my screen. Do you see it, I hope?
Yes.
Good, perfect. So yeah, as we're talking about the testing strategies today, as Jose mentioned already, the test pyramid is probably known to everybody, where we usually have unit tests, the big part of it, have some integration tests, and maybe just a few UI tests. The reason is unit tests are really cheap usually to write. It goes more expensive when you go up, and also the execution time, they are really fast, and the UI tests are getting slow. Now, what we want to show today is a bit that we can maybe change this picture a bit by using the right tools and techniques to also write integration and even UI tests in a cheap way. Then continuous delivery is also a buzzword, but I think this is something expected today from our business. So we want to deliver business value with every sprint. Continuous delivery doesn't mean you deploy in the morning and then you send 10 patches because you had a lot of bugs. So it really means every deployment is something new. So a typical flow is like from development, you have a PR build, going into the release build, deploy everything to your stage environment, run system tests, go to the production environment, and then you have the monitoring, health checks, and so on, and then the cycle starts again. Now, where in these stages do we execute tests? I would say almost everywhere, because on the dev machine you do it, on the PR build you really usually run all the unit tests, maybe some integration tests, the release build, you run all the integration tests, and here in the system test you run probably all the UI tests, and even in the monitoring, health checks are also kind of tests, but even UI tests can be used for smoke testing on production with just some minimal use. So testing everywhere. Just to go. Now, the test target today, I thought it would be hard to show some code we write here. So we choose a project I'm working on since some years. It always has to be my private stuff. I wanted to push it to GitHub, but if I do that, probably I will never get a job again. So I'm rewriting everything at the moment, and it's a kind of a photo UI which you can manage your private family photos with all the features you know from Google, like face detection, object detection, all that fancy stuff, but without giving away all your valuable pictures. And we will use that today. So you see there are containers in Python, there are MongoDB, RabbitMQ, there's an identity server, there's a GraphQL API. So a lot of things can test. And one more reason we choose this, as you can probably guess, a private project doesn't have so many tests, so let's do that today. So we will jump right into Visual Studio. I hope the size is okay, or bit bigger. As I say, we will start on the very low part. So simple unit test. I think I don't have to write them for you, but you have a service. It looks like that. He calculates some age. He has 0 dependencies. So the tests are quite easy to write. You just arrange the stuff, calculate it, and then do some assertions. Maybe you do another check. So this is something we do day by day. Yeah, probably boring. So we go to the next. Then, for example, we take this person. If we take this service, this is the service which you can get person and update person and so on. And you see already we have a dependency on the person store, and we have a service bus in here which send messages. So here it gets a bit more complicated. Typically, we just mock away these 2 things and write a test because we don't want to test the underlying functionality in the unit tests. So to do that, I already created the mocks here. So I have a person store mock. We're using mockq, which I guess is one of the most popular mocking library for .NET. So we just set up the methods which are used in this test. So we see there's a try get by name, and there's this add async and the publish on the bus. So we just mock these 2 things here, the bus and the other one, and then we can just paste the other thing in. Just 1 second. So I will just like this. We create the 2 mocks. We instantiate the service, and then we assert the 2 things. And it's mostly also a good pattern to verify that the mocks actually have been called. So you verify if this add method, has been, the add async has been called, and the publish. Now I have to say, I think in this project, I run everything in preview, so it just crashed. But that makes it more fun. Now, just to say again, we asserted 3 things here, which is probably not the best pattern. So if Norman will do the code review, he will say split into 3 tests, but here for the sake of a demo, it should just work. Just waiting until my Visual Studio is back. Okay, so far so good. I think we are still in the space where this is kind of a day-by-day job of a .NET developer to write these kind of tests. Now we're going to another one. So where we have, for example, just for looking for something, this person store. This is now the thing which writes into the database. So we have a database context here, which is MongoDB, and you just do a add async. So now, how do we kind of do a test against this without having a database? Because okay, you can try to abstract the things away, but you're not then testing anymore really the thing, or you start your MongoDB locally on your server, but then every dev has to set up a lot of environment. So we go into here. I didn't want to show that. So this is where we use Squadron. Squadron is just a NuGet package you can install. So if I look at the test here, you see I installed Squadron Mongo, of course, a preview just to make it a bit more exciting. And then we can, just because we're using XUnit, we can inject a class fixture of a Mongo resource. And then, because it's a fixture, we need to inject this thing here and call it Mongo. Okay, and then we have actually a MongoDB ready to do some tests. So the first thing I will do is, let's say I do an iMongo database. DB is equal Mongo create database. So this creates now a database with just a random name, so I don't disturb my stuff. Then I initialize this DB context we saw before, this media store context where we have the persons on it, the collection, and with some options, and the options are taken now from this resource. So I have the connection string and I have the database name. Now just some arrangement like create the store, just add a new person, and then in the act, of course, we just adding it to the store. And now for the assertion, what we can do is just to get the person out of the DB because we have access to the context, but we're not using the store because we don't want to test the store. And then we can just arrange this thing. So now we try to run this, and I would just put the breakpoint maybe here. So this should now start the MongoDB on the top. So this class fixture here, make sure that the MongoDB is starting. And I would quickly use my favorite tool to manage. Oh, I press F5 on the wrong place. I'm sorry. I have to do it again. So you see this is just my MongoDB I use for work. This is not what we're talking about. So if we refresh a bit, you see created a MongoDB here. It's running now. If I go back into the code, see the person added here. So I can also go in. It's a real thing. It's not just a copy out the port maybe, which is generated dynamically. So you can where's the edit button? Oh, no, sorry. It's here. Manage. So I just add a connection to this thing here, so I can call, and you see this random database. He created a person collection. He added this person, so we can actually touch the thing. And now we do the assertions, and when the test is done, the container should be gone as well. Exactly.
So Philippe, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
In the code, can you go back to the code? Did I understand it right that if you go up, that this class fixture Mongo resource, this part starts in the background a Docker container and with a Mongo image, and if you call then mongo.createDatabase, then a new database is created in this Docker container inside.
Exactly. So these are all using this async lifetime from XUnit. So he will boot up the Mongo, and then you can do as many as you want from them, and you have always a different database to not infer with all your tests. Maybe you can talk later about best practices, because what happens if you have 500 containers starting? This is a bit the point where you start to think, but there are also some techniques to do that. So that was now, I would say, already we are on the level of integration testing, right? So we're starting databases and so on. This is thing. So now we would go, I would say, next level. I now do just a manual test. So I'm starting my API host. This is just a GraphQL API. When it started, I start the lollipop, and see I can execute here a query which I have prepared, which runs against this server I did run, which now returns a lot of data about an image. And this is all metadata you have in an image, so that's why probably you don't want to give everything to Google. So now, how do I write a test which does exactly that? Starting a server, executing a GraphQL query against it, and thing. And this is now the next. So I'm stopping that because I think this is not repeatable. I mean, it's a test. You start the UI, you click somewhere, but it's not repetitive. And so what we want to do now is, if I go to tests again, now I have some host tests. Now we need a bit more than a MongoDB. So what I did here is I write kind of a API test server using the same pattern with the async lifetime. And then we also just create a new Mongo resource. So you don't have to do it only in a picture. You can just use the methods on here. We create the database, we assign the context, and then we're creating a web host builder to have to start a test server. Here are some special things to inject the connection strings and database names into the in-memory configuration. This is all only used for the GraphQL client generation, so don't worry about this. We create a test server, we create a HTTP client of the test server, and then we create a GraphQL client using the Strawberry Shake library and set the base address. And also important, we see some initial data here. So we put some database, some records into the database, so we have something to play around. You probably would do that in the test, but now just for demo purpose, it makes it easier. Okay, if I go now into the test, which is using this API test server. So this is quite a lot of glue code, I would say, but you write this usually only once, and then you can write all your API tests. So you have to go to GraphQL here. Now I'm not using the class fixture, I'm using the collection fixture, because this will help if we have multiple tests that they will run all against the same server. So I'm saying I want this one, and then I just inject the API test server. Like this, so it's now using my whole API test server, and I'm just copying the test. So I get the ID from the seeder, so I have an ID, and then I just use GraphQL client, the generated one, to get this query. The query has been added here. So this is just a GraphQL query I put before in the banana cake pop, now just executed into here. So if I run this test, just run it. This should now start the Mongo database, start the in-memory ASP.NET server, seed some initial data, run the test and do a silly assertion, but oh, green. Okay. The assertion here is probably not the best because, as you saw, there's a bit more data in this object, but more on this later. So that was still quite easy. Now, I would say when it starts to get complicated is when people start to do things like that. So I go into my GraphQL registration and I add authorization. So I say now you can call this API only when you're authorized. And this usually brings then the big problems because security makes everything harder. So this is a thing which will now say I want the policy read to be on the user and that the user has to be authenticated. I can prove that by going into the host. You see here, I'm adding a JBT bearer middleware, and then I'm adding this authorization policy, which requires a claim on the token. So we need an access token now. So because we have an identity server project here, why not start this thing also in a container? So we could do this a bit more generic for demo. I simplified a bit, so I just created a copy of API test server and call it API test server with identity, which just adds a very few things. So the first is now we're using a compose resource and not only one container. So compose resource is now composed of one MongoDB and one identity server. And then we link them together so they can speak together with the connection strings and so on. And you see, this is how we configure a generic container. So it's not about MongoDB here. We can start any container from any registry or even from your local machine like I'm doing here. And we put it in a separate network so they can talk together. So now that we've done that, we can try to just replace this with API server with identity. Do that. And if it didn't forget something, then it should just work. And just put a breakpoint into the place where the token is resolved. So you see that this test server is getting, maybe I put the breakpoint here. It's getting the URI of the identity server, which just started into a container. So this is kind of the authority we need for token validation. This is also injected then into the configuration. The other is the same. The only difference is we need to make sure that the token is resolved. So we added a token resolver here. When the token resolve is not null, he will go here. He will get a bearer token from the thing here. So that you see this is just a regular bearer token with some clients we seeded before in the Mongo database. And then we can add this token to the authorization header. And if we're lucky enough, it's green. So we now did, let's say, full integration test with security and tokens and without mocking away anything or trying to, there are many techniques to inject identities into things, but usually you don't test the real behavior because you're still faking something. I would say that's a way that you are safe to go to production after that.
Philip,
Yes.
can I just ask you if I got it right? So the collection with API server with identity, this one is creating in the background a Docker container with MongoDB, and it creates a Docker container with an identity server as well. So it's composed, and you start both of them at the beginning from the test. Then within the test, you start the test server, and then you call from the client first the identity server, get a token, and then you call your test server, which goes to the Mongo database.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts involved, but
that's quite complex. Yes.
Yeah, but I would say the nice thing of that, if you look at this test, this is all the right. Then in your test, the glue code, you write it once or maybe with some variations. But now we can write tests for all the 200 GraphQL queries, and they will kind of work the same.
And how long did it take you to write the glue code for all the preparations with Docker and so on?
I would say if you are used to it, then it's not big work. And this will be open source after, so you can just copy paste. Yes.
Perfect.
Good. Just maybe to see how long it takes, I can just run one. It takes a while to start the containers, but this is really quick. And we create a collection fixture, so we would do this startup just once and run 50 tests. So it is still very fast. If you think what happened, all is 1.6 seconds to write an integration test with identity and MongoDB and data seeding. So still very fast. Okay, now let's fix this one. Norman, please. I will just go to the slides. Oh, sorry, I forgot one slide. Sorry about that. So what you just saw was Squadron. Squadron is a testing framework for containerized stuff and cloud services. I think it has started in Swiss life like many years ago with a set of PowerShell scripts, has then evolved to what it is today. These are all the containers we support, of course, with generic, you can spin up any containers, but we have also support for cloud. So for example, Azure Service Bus is really hard to test. So we can spin up an Azure resource, run our test and stop the resource after that. The same for storage. Of course, that takes a bit more time, but it's still really easy to do. Okay, so now we can fix it.
Okay, thanks to Philip. Just to introduce myself, I'm Norman Scheiber, and I've been developing software in .NET for about 15 years now, and I've always been in regulated fields, so testing is daily business. And today, I would like to talk with you about the validation of test results, like Philip already said. So for that, I have to share my screen. Can you see it?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, so let's talk about the validation of test results in a unit or integration test. If it works. Okay, so the main question here is how can we verify the results of a test correctly and efficiently? So for unit tests, that's quite simple. We usually have one value to validate, and we do that with one assert. One assert is enough. We have validated correctly the value. It doesn't cost a lot of time, so it's written very fast. It's one line, and the complexity to read it and understand it is also really low, so really good. But in an integration test or system test, we can have several values in a result which we have to check. So over time, we have seen a lot of different approaches to verify these values. And none of these approaches did really fit perfectly for us. So for example, we have seen tests with integration tests with several values to validate with one assert. So we can't say that's validated correctly because, for example, if you have a result with 50 fields or values, one assert is just not enough. But it's fast and not complex. So we have seen that a lot of time. It's a common solution. In other cases, we have seen multiple asserts. So that means if you have a result with 50 values, you have 50 asserts which check all the values. So the values are validated correctly, but this costs you a lot of time to write all these asserts. And it's also really complex to read it for another developer, what was tested and what was validated in the result set. And there is even a more complex case if you have multiple asserts and you have some logic in it. So for example, you have a result with an array or other values, and you use in your asserts logic like for or if, and this gets even more complex. So the values are validated correctly, but you lose a lot of time, and it's so complex that usually another developer can't understand it very well. So we were not content with this, with all these approaches, and we thought about how can we simplify and improve this. Therefore, we tried to find a better solution, and what we found was snapshot testing. And snapshot testing solved all of these problems for us. Snapshot testing usually checks all the results which you have in all the values in a result, which you have. It's usually also only one line, and the snapshot is really easy to understand. So snapshot testing is exactly what I want to show you today. So let's go to the magic media of Philippe, and let's try to improve some integration tests. Just give me a second. Okay. So here we are in the magic media of Philippe, and I'm looking for an integration test. API host tests, GraphQL. That looks quite to the integration test which Philippe wrote before. Exactly. Yes. So here we can see that we call the test server with an ID, with the media ID, and what we get back is the media details as a result. And Philippe just checks here one single value of the result. So Philippe made just one value because I asked him to check only one value for me that I can present it. But that's usually daily business. And I checked the result. In the result, we have 25 values to check. So this is not enough only to check the name, for example, or the file name. So to make it right, as I showed before, we have to write a lot of asserts. So these are the 25 asserts which check all the fields, all the values of the result. Let's try if that runs. And this part, these asserts, it's really difficult to read and to understand what happens exactly. So I run the test, everything green, that means all the fields were validated. The test is correct, but it took me like 15 minutes just to write these asserts and to check it. And to write 25 or 50 asserts, that's quite a boring job, or it's really tedious. And it's not that developers don't like to write that many asserts. No, they hate to write that many asserts. So, and even if you have an additional field, an additional value in the result, the test is still green. Even the result is, even you have one more result, one more value, and you have no idea, you have no clue that this value is not checked. So this we can solve with one line of code, with a snapshot test. For that, we have to install a snapshot testing tool. I just check if it's installed already. Yes, here we can see we have SnapShooter for XUnit. That's already installed. Perfect. So I replace now all these asserts with snapshot.match. And I want to snapshot the whole result. Okay. Perfect. So that's quite easy to understand, I would say. And we go and run this test now. And check. And test is running. And what the snapshot testing tool called SnapShooter, which we use, is doing now, it creates a new folder called snapshot. You can see here. It's next to your test class, always next to the test class. And in this folder, we have the snapshot of the test. The snapshot has always, per default, the class name and the method name. You can also give your own name if you want. That's no problem. That's just an option. You can also extend this name if you want, if it's not enough. So we go back and we go inside of the snapshot. So here you see that's the whole result of our test and with all the values. And what we have to do now is to review if all these values are right. That's the most important part. But it's easy to read because it's in the JSON format and we know exactly the values which are inside. So if we rerun now our test, what happens then? We rerun it. So we have now an original snapshot already. So with a rerun, Snapshooter is doing nothing else than it's taking the result again, makes again a snapshot of it, a JSON snapshot, and compares it with the original snapshot in the file system. So, and if they are the same, then our test is green. I think it already run, so it's green, perfect.
But you have to run it twice, is that correct?
No, you can run it once and just review it. That's already, then it's already done. If you run it twice, it's just to check if you have the same result. But it's a good question because I will show you afterwards that if you have fields which change all the time, that you have other problems which you have to solve. But we come to this to another, just a bit later. So what I go and do now is I want to show you what happens if you don't have the same result. So we go to Philippe's default, where he has the file name test01, and change it to test02. So now I should get a result from the client, which has the name test02, and so the snapshot should not match anymore, and we should get a mistake, an error. So I run it, and I check it in the Test Explorer. So, okay, it failed, and it tells us, okay, the file name changed from test01 to test02. And we see, okay, snapshot, the test failed, they changed something. But we save, if we have a mismatch in a snapshot test, we have the actual result here in the mismatch folder of the snapshots folder. So we did that because now we can compare these two snapshots with a file comparer. That's for Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code. You can download it. It's just an extension. This one is file diff or file differ. And you just can say, okay, we've compared these two files, and we can see immediately, oh, okay, the file name changed. So we have really a good overview. If many fields change, you have a really good overview what went wrong or which fields have a change. So, and if you say, okay, the new values, the ones in the mismatch folder are correct, we change now the snapshot, we just take the file, move it to the snapshots folder, override the original one, and now we have the new changed snapshot as the original one. And if I run again, we should have a green test again. Yes. So if you think, oh no, we did something wrong in the code, so the mismatch snapshot is wrong, then you have to fix your code. So it's the two ways that you have. Okay. And just to mention now, if you have a new field or a new value in the result, the snapshot will get it. So if you have a new field here, you will have a mismatch snapshot, and the new field is in the mismatch snapshot. So your test will fail. So always, if you change something in your result, you will have the information, or you will have a failing test. So, and now, in some cases, you have a system test, and you get a result from your server or from your database. You have a result which always changes. That means, for example, you have an ID which has always another value. That would mean the snapshot would always fail, or the match of the snapshot fails always because you have always a new ID. I simulate this shortly. So I go again to the code of Philippe, and we have here media face, and there's a GUID which is always the same. We just say, okay, let's go, and we have always a new GUID. So now we run the test again, and it should fail because we have a new ID in the media face. So it's running the test. It failed again. It shows me here the ID is different. I go to the mismatch, say, okay, compare what happened. Okay, the ID. And I know now, oh, this ID is changing all the time. I can't have it constant. So we have the possibility to make an exception, and we use for that the match option. And I just say, okay, match options, ignore field. Yes, which ignores the field which I give here. I have to define it with JSON path, so I just need a hint. It's in data, media by ID, faces, ID. Okay. Data, media by ID, faces, and faces was an array. So I say for every object in the array, the ID, I will ignore the ID of it. So this ignores the ID here, just the ID here. So let's execute test again. Go to test is green, so we ignore this ID. The ID is changing all the time. We have no problem anymore with that. And the snapshot in the mismatch folder just disappeared. So everything green now. You could also use is type field, and we say it's GUID. So it ignores here, that's a better solution because it checks if the ID is a GUID. If it's a GUID, then everything is fine, but it ignores the value. So if the value is ignored, it's just checked if it's really a GUID. that's even better than just ignore the field. So you can also do that for datetime, for example. If you say, oh, the datetime is always different, but I want to know if it's a datetime, you can just say, okay, it's type field datetime, and it will check if there is a datetime always on this position. Okay, that's all I wanted to show with Snap Shooter. We have many other options here, but too less time to show it. So we go back to, oh, wrong. This one. So, and what I used, I just wanted to show you what I used was the Snap Shooter snapshot testing tool for .NET. So it was not our invention, snapshot testing. So we just were inspired by Jest. Jest is a JavaScript testing framework, and they use snapshot testing now for years. So, and it's very popular in the JavaScript testing. SnapShooter is now for XUnit and NUnit tests available, and we have developed it on GitHub with the Swiss Life OSS team, and all the documentation, everything is on GitHub or on the GitHub pages. But there are also now other tools for snapshot testing for .NET. It's Snapper or Verify. So if you don't like our tool for snapshot testing, maybe you can use one of these ones. But I would say our one is the best one, of course.
It's also the most popular one,
Yeah,
if you go by downloads.
So, and what's also important to know, or our experience which we made with snapshot testing, is that the people get really used to snapshot testing, and they start to do unit tests with SnapShooter. Just a unit test with one assert, we saw snapshot matches. So that's really not the way to use it, because the unit test should really have one single assert and not a snapshot with a file. So we do not recommend that to use it in unit tests. And also, if you have too many fields to ignore in your snapshot, you have to think about it if it's the right tool. So if you have 20 values in your result and you have to ignore 18 of them, then it's definitely the wrong tool. And what's also very important is to get used to review snapshots. We experienced that some people just made a snapshot, but did not check it, did not review it. That's like to write an assert which is always true. So we have really to go into the snapshot and check it, especially the first one, the original one which you make. And I can just say we experienced that the test development, the speed is much higher now than before, because we don't have to write all these asserts anymore. And just think about, like, you have 10 integration tests with 20 asserts. It's 10 minutes per test. It's like 20 times 10 minutes. It's 200 minutes, which you can minimize to maybe 15 minutes. Okay, that was it from my side. I give back to Philippe or to Jose, and we see what's coming next.
Yeah, thank you. Can you go to the next slide?
Of course.
So now we will do a 5-minute break. So either you can take your beverage of choice, either tea or anything, or you can take the chance to do a very quick bio break. So the 5 minutes starts now. So see you in 5 minutes. 2 minutes left. So we got already like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions in a Slido. So I will remind you, I will paste again the link for the Slido. It's already there, but I will, if you have any question,
And
you should put it
Norman
there.
and Philip, do you want to have the first set of questions after the break, or do you want to answer them all at the end?
I would say makes sense to make it at the end, because maybe we will cover some things now.
Okay.
Maybe.
So 1 minute left. And we are back. Philippe, back to you.
Okay, so we will continue. So I think now we climbed up almost to the integration testing. So now the last, but mostly the hardest part is when you go to the mountain, is the last bits, is to write UI tests where everything comes together. So let's do that. We will jump directly into Visual Studio. And as I said, there's an identity server here involved. So there's a login page where we can log in. So I just want to do a UI test of this. Now I'm just running it to see what it does, and then we can talk about what happened. So it should start and it should open Google Chrome, and then it should just log in and validate that the subject ID of the user is of that one. This is also some preceded data. So now it's here. So starting from, I log in, then I put some delay in between, otherwise you cannot see it because it's so fast. So what did we do here? The first concept you already known, because now we created this identity test context, very similar to what we did before, just with some extra configuration. So we have also a MongoDB. We also start our identity server host. Then this is something which comes later. And then the other thing, we also create a WebDriver using Selenium. So we just create using the WebDriver factory, we create a Selenium build. Otherwise, it's actually quite the same that the integration test we did before. Then we did the test context. You can create an app. This is just a model we like to use to make your UI test looks nice and clean, because otherwise, if you would say, for example, like we open the page, then we say login. Login does actually go to the username. Username is find element by ID and set thing. Press the submit button. It just looks much nicer when you, and also when you start to compose a lot of tests, you can reuse a lot of these pages and components and so on. And then, we assert the value. We can take some snapshots, screenshots as well. if we want to compare them after, also use some tooling to compare screenshots of UIs to make sure that the test is good. Now, that was, I would say, quite easy. And again, you set up your text context one and you can use it for everything. Now, I have a second test, which I have to show you by quickly running the host. Because now, again, this security stuff, which stands in our way as usual, is we have a page which has started where you can sign up for a new user. So just say fullwebbar.com. And now I enter my so sign up. Now I should get a SMS. So so I have to enter this SMS here. So it's 328298. And then the registration is completed. I can go back to the MongoDB. This runs now because I started it on my local Visual Studio. So it's configured to use this one. So I should have a session here with my email number and state completed. So now we had the SMS between the tests. How the hell should we write a test to do that? Because we don't want to alter our code, our business code to do tests. So now this is where some other tool comes in to help. So if I go to the other test, which is the sign up test, you see one more line here. You say start magnet async, and magnet, you can imagine it's like a magnet you put on and it pulls all the messages and so on. And now I'm taking a mobile number. This mobile number is actually a real number. It's registered at Twilio. You pay like 10 francs for it per month. We just add a number, then I debug this. I think it's the quickest way. Wait until he has started the test. Takes a while to do this WebDriver stuff. So it comes to the first page, goes in here, it sends a message, then F10, F10. Say wait for SMS. You see, I got an SMS. Your code is, so this came from a real SMS. That's not a kind of in-memory stuff. I just parse out the code and then I enter the code in the UI. Then it looks like this. Already done. And then usually kind of UI tests or black box testing. But I was thinking like, I mean, we have everything so close. Why not make it also a gray box test? Because we cannot only validate that, okay, the registration is completed, but I also want to go into the database, which was started by Squadron just next to the identity server. So I just get this session with this email, return it, and check if this is completed. So now I know, and now I would do a snapshot test. Yeah, no, 2 variables, maybe not so good, huh? Okay, so now we have a UI test, which would say did everything. He read an SMS and all. Now, how does this magic happen? I will just show you the place is in this identity test context. What we did here is we installed a package which is called Magnet Client. So this is just a NuGet package. You can install it. And then when we configure our test context, we have to add it to the service collection. So we say add magnet, you give it a URI. This is a server. With more about this, you give it a name, and then you have it ready to get some things. Okay. The pattern here, you see, was the same as in the last API host. Now, this is really good to show it on your local machine, right? You can click, you see it go through, but next, you probably want to run these tests in your CI/CD builds, and maybe your Linux machine there doesn't have a Chrome installed or anything like that. There are many ways to do it, like there's some AzureDevOps Windows machine which have Firefox or Chrome installed, so you can't run it there. But we want to not rely on infrastructure, and also for the developer, maybe he doesn't want to see all this flickering. So now we can go one step further. So we have Squadron. Why not use it also as a web driver to run the tests? So what I did here in the infrastructure, I added a Selenium Firefox server here. So this is just a Docker image. It's called this. I take the latest. The good thing is I could test every possible Firefox version with it, because I can just change the tag here. This is just some specifics for this, and I also put it into a network. So now I connect these all together. You see again, I have a MongoDB, I have the Selenium server, I have the identity host, which runs the UI, which connects internally to the database. Now, what I did to make it easy to show is just in this, I have to find my way to this WebDriver factory. We can define if it using just a local Chrome or some remote Chrome. So remote will just use the URI we give in there. So I added it to the configuration. I just changed from local to remote, and I changed browser from Firefox Google to Firefox. So, and then we should be able to run this test fully on any environment. So it will run. If you have Docker, it will just run. If I didn't do a mistake, so let it see. It will take a while because it's waiting for some SMS, which sometimes takes seconds. So it's running. You don't see a browser pop up because this browser is now running inside of the container. It's kind of a VNC thing connecting into it. I don't know how it works, but it just works. So you see the test is green. That means he had to pass these assertions. He checked the UI. He got the database and everything. So I think this is almost the tip of the pyramid, where you can write a test like this with a few lines of code, a bit of glue code, which we run on every machine and when Docker installed and on every CI/CD pipeline. And as I say, I mean, we used now this Selenium Firefox. We could use a Selenium Hub to spread it out to different browsers like IE and Edge and so on, or if say, and other things. So there are many options we can use for that. And it looks simple. Now, back to the slides, because there's still I think, a bit of a magic thing behind there. So what just happened here, just to explain, we have our test context, started the database, started the identity server, started the Selenium container, put this everything in the same Docker network so they can talk to each other. Then we initialized Magnet, initialized the driver, XUnit test, and then we talk to the Magnet server. And in this case, Twilio, which is a SMS service, sent us this SMS to the Magnet server. Then what is Magnet? Magnet is a two-part component, I would say, a classic client-server thing. So there's a server. It's usually stateless, so I should remove that database. It runs on a RabbitMQ event hub and exposes some hooks. Now, the hooks we have implemented is Twilio, is Twilio SendGrid. I mean, Twilio both SendGrid. So, but one is SMS, one is email. Then it works with AzureDevOps for some reasons. And we have also our message gun, which can do everything. So that means if you have, for example, a real case example, actually, in our registration process. So if you go Swiss-CH and want a new account, you do everything. You do SMS, you do email, and you do a letter. And it's hard to simulate the Magnet with a post thing to get the PDF. So we have implemented something like the message gun, where we can, into the service which would send this PDF, we find out if we are inside of a Selenium test. So we can call this kind of a robot session. And if this is the case, we use this gun and just shoot into this webhook with type kind of PDF. And then he thinks he's a PDF, and then the test can kind of get any arbitrary objects. Then the other part is the client. Yeah, that is really easy. You have your task project, you add your NuGet packages for Twilio, for SendGrid, or you extend it with your provider you want. AzureDevOps here, maybe history is we use this as a support tool for, so if you create a support in the customer portal, it will create a ticket in AzureDevOps, and with this way we can test the whole flow to get the ticket, the updated ticket, and so on. So that's really useful, and it's, I would say, very easy to add a new provider. So if you have something which is not supported here, you can add it to your project, or just put it or contribute it to the whole thing. So it was a really helpful library for us to do all the UI testing of the registration process, because there, as I say, we have a lot of SMS and emails going out. Yes, so far so good. I think we're getting just a little summary what we saw. Squadron, the container framework, Snapshooter, snapshot tests, and Magnet, they are all open source. You find them on the Swiss Life. I have to find the browser. What is that? So here you find these three things with all the documentations and getting started for it. I have to say that this one is still not so a lot, but we're working on it to have the documentation for Magnet also ready soon, because the client stuff is really easy, but one, you have to build your Magnet server yourself, because you need to register your accounts with SendGrid and all that stuff. Then one thing we forgot, user tests. So I wanted to start an experiment if you can test this application remotely. So let's try if this works. So this is really an experiment. He will probably break, and but we can also make a load test of it, because you can crash my machine. So if I'm gone, you know you did it. I will just check out main. Of course not. What does a developer do when it doesn't work? Minus force works everywhere. I'm starting now this API. I'm starting UI. And I'm starting more things. Python container to do face recognition. My favorite features of Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio Remote container. That is really freaking awesome. So you can have your Python environment in a container without setting up anything. So I will Python Py. This starts just a Flask web server. So we should have everything soon. Just a second. And then I'm just proxying everything to my machine. ngrok is also a really useful tool, if you don't know it, to do this kind of proxy stuff. And now if I find the chat in Zoom, I can probably, that's the hardest part now. Where is this chat button? Help. Come on. So Jose, can you tell me where the chat button is when I'm sharing? I have participant pose, mute.
Yes, you can go below. So when you're sharing, you have it on the bottom of the screen that you're sharing. So it's a chat.
Really?
Yeah. You should have it there under the screen. So let me take a screenshot of that. And I will paste it.
I have participants, I have... No, that's not true.
I already shared a link, so...
All right.
Did you copy?
Good.
Manually,
Perfect.
yeah.
Thanks for your help. So now you should go in there. If you want, you can upload some pictures of yourself or someone else. And if it works, it could even already recognize some people in this room. But just if we are really lucky, I will go here. Yeah, I had to tag some before, so he should know. Then when it's this color, he was recognized by a computer. So I will monitor my CPU, because the face recognition takes quite a lot of CPU resources. So if I'm gone, then you killed my computer.
Sounds like you are challenging us.
Yes.
So which phase breaks Philippe's computer?
I can press the upload button here. I've probably stood. I see something coming. We have a face, but he didn't know. But I guess this is Tim. So next time he will know.
The team is trained.
Oh, this one. Ah,
He didn't train the model with our team.
yeah, the thing is probably he's like 10 years before that.
Too young.
It was quite old, yeah.
But I must say it's running quite smooth. But there's not so. So this is the face detection going on here, predicting, detecting, and yeah, this is all about testing. I think we can still keep it open, so maybe we'll see what's coming later. I will just, for the completeness, one thing I think I have to do now, because I showed you all that stuff in, sorry about that. So I will just go to GitHub, just open source this thing so you can have a look at it if you're interested. So settings, I think this is, I have a password manager. I think my machine getting really slow now.
I tried to upload one, but didn't seem to work.
Okay.
We'll try now with another browser.
Okay. Manage access. So I think we go to the danger zone, visibility, public, and then just.
So you're now open sourcing.
Yeah, now I have to, otherwise you cannot see it. So if you're interested, you can go into here to watch all the code and all the tests. This is now the completed state, but it's the same.
So it's all the demos that we saw today.
Yes, they are all there. And as I still have a lot of vacations to take this year, hopefully this will be kind of done by the end of the year, the whole application. So the web page I showed you, email we don't read, but you can contact us on Twitter or on Slack, or just directly to someone if you have any questions.
And all these projects that we saw today are under the Swiss Life open source umbrella. And open source means if anybody is interested in contributing, he or she is invited to just open up a pull request or an issue, and then we can get you started.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because especially Squadron is a really good place to start contributing, because you can just think of one resource you want to add, and it's really easy to add a new resource. Like if you want, I don't know, I think we're just adding MariaDB now, or some special databases or whatever.
Yeah, there were contributions already from a lot of people. We have some of a very big engineering company that sponsored the Neo4j container integration. So there's a lot going on there.
So someone broke it. Sorry, there's a breakpoint. That's why it's. Oh, I see. Okay, I think I have to write more tests for that.
yeah, you said you have a lot of holidays left.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, there's a lot of pictures which run into some. Okay. It didn't hold the load test, but thanks for your contribution.
So, Jose.
Yes.
Did you have the Slido ready?
I have it, yes. So we have several questions there. I will read it one by one. I will start with the one which is not anonymous, which is from Urs. Urs, thank you for your question. It's a very good one. Why didn't you use approval tests.net or fluent assertions be equivalent to instead of snap shooter?
Approval test is different than snap shooter at Jest. It's an older implementation actually, and it doesn't work with those snapshot options that you saw. They are very fine-grained, and we didn't see them in this API.
Yes, and also fluent assertions be equivalent to is differently to snapshots, because there you need an object with all the values inside to compare it with your result. And for example, if you have GraphQL, you don't have an object for that with all the fields inside which you could compare with. So it's not the same exactly. So if you have an object, an arranged object which you can compare with your result, then fluent assertion with be equivalent to would also be my first choice.
All right. Then the next question is, do you work with TDD? I guess it's referring to you, your team in Swiss Life. I guess it's referring to test-driven development.
I would say sometimes.
No.
Yeah.
No, we're actually working with we're doing a lot of tests and building up a lot of tests in our team, but it's not test driven.
All right.
Where test driven, you start with the test. No,
exactly.
We start with the chaos and test the chaos afterwards.
Good. Is Portainer.io your recommended container manager?
It is mine, yeah, because I think it's really easy to use, and it's much faster than the Docker desktop dashboard and so on. So I really love to work with this one. It's
seems to have more options at least.
Yeah, it's fast. That's the other one. It's always you see some turning things which are annoying. So this one is always fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks good.
Definitely can recommend this one.
Yeah. Good. The next question is, where did the GraphQL client property on your test server came from?
This is a library called Strawberry Shake, I think. So if you look at the API tests, what we did is we add this one, and then there's some configuration. Then you can write your queries, and this will then generate all this stuff here. And this is what the GraphQL client is. This is part of Michael's work to generate .NET clients for GraphQL. So we can easily kind of go to the queries, do a change here. Maybe we don't want this Camry ID anymore, and then just save or build.
Just save. Usually just save.
And then it will generate a new client. This should see it.
Yeah, and you have changes there.
Generate client thing, and you see that, oops. Yeah, exactly. Here we removed some fields. So this is this stuff. Really useful to write with. I was thinking when I was writing this test to just do some, put in some strings and so on, but thought it will be fun to use this one. And it turns out it works great, but there's one feedback to Michael. You should add some better way to inject the HTTP client here?
Yes, there is. After we have shipped version 11 of the server, we will focus actually on the client API and finish that.
Because I had to do some special things, but it worked at the end. Because we need to put an in-memory HTTP client from the test server, and this was a bit problem.
An additional response to this GraphQL client, this comes from the Hot Chocolate library, which is mostly the work of a brilliant set of people, which we have some of them in the room, like Michael and Pascal. And I don't know if we have anybody else, but
He's not here, but
yeah. And we have a session in our user group. I'm pasting here where the link to it. So if you like what you see, please remember to subscribe. We would appreciate that. And there we have a session on GraphQL, and we show how this hot chocolate works. Probably a few things have changed because this is done with the private preview, but well, you will get an idea on how this works. The next question is, what is the average duration of a test with spinning up one or many containers in your daily work?
Okay, I can maybe answer this one. It's fast, so that's why I say if you use the class fixture, then you get a container for every class. So that means it's difficult to say because just spinning up a MongoDB takes like 500 milliseconds. And if you have 10 tests in your class, you just have this 500 millisecond overhead and not more. Now we have repos with like 400 tests, which is spinning up containers. And this is where we came into problems because the hosted build pipelines in the Azure DevOps don't allow us to start so many containers at the same time. So this way we started to use the collection fixtures. So you can even use one container for the whole assembly or even more. And sometimes this is not a problem because it can create databases with different namespace. So I would say the overhead is almost zero, or count like, or if you use SQL Server, then of course you have to wait because we support SQL Server in Snapshot, but then you have to wait like 5 seconds. But
the SQL Server is brutal sometimes. SQL Server is brutal. Everything else works.
If you use entity framework, it's brutal.
Yeah, with SQL Server, but that is not due to the framework overhead. It's just if you have a very heavy container like that starts up a ton of stuff, then this takes a ton of stuff to start that. So with MongoDB, for instance, it's instant, whereas with SQL Server you have some wait time until it is able to connect to the ports. But it depends on the stuff that you use.
Also, Phil, there's your workaround, right?
Yes, with the collection fixture, which works quite well.
If you apply this solution, and then you have to, you can still execute the test in parallel, but I guess not, right?
It depends on the resource. Like, for example, MongoDB is easy because you create a database for every test.
Yep.
From maybe RabbitMQ, where you need one server for every thing, you have to spin up multiple instances. But as I said, we could run 200 containers in one test without any problems.
Yeah,
cool.
And it's not to be fair to SQL Server here. It's with SQL Server, the problem that we have there is you always have to create the database model, right? Before you do any writes to it, you have to create the schema. You have to create the database with all the tables, and that takes time. Whereas with Mongo, there is no fixed schema, so you just can create a collection and add data there.
Cool. The last question is, what is the future of Identity Server GitHub? Since 1st of October, they created a new company and all new features will be available under the new company.
Yes, that's a fact, I would say, but I think still has a future. So for us, we are happy to pay $12,000 to Dominic and Brock in the future. I tried to do a sponsorship, but it's really hard to go through in our company to pay something where there's not a bill. So I'm happy. So I'm happy that we can pay them now. That's my point. Of course,
Okay.
if you
And I can actually, if you read the blog post that Dominic wrote, it's a pity that companies didn't sponsor this crucial piece of software in the .NET world more money. I mean, they got each of the contributors there got 9,000 per year, and they had to work full time for it. So yeah, sometimes you need a bill.
All right. So we have a new question again from Urs. So you started and you finish it, unless somebody else adds another question. Do you execute your business logic test in a pure mode, no DB, or are the business logic tests executed with dependencies, database, etc.?
Should I answer? From my side, I would say both. So we don't do business logic just on the database, the integration test. So on every layer of the application, the test do run. Sometimes, I would say, when there's so much logic or so complex flows, we like to spend more time to write good integration tests with everything behind instead of this thing. But it depends. Maybe someone
We have for instance, Philip, we have for the login integration, we have a pure business logic tests where we stripped out the database for an in-memory database. But the problem with that often is also that while they are executing faster, if you, for instance, take Entity Framework, then use the in-memory provider, you will see not the issues that you will get with your actual database system. For instance, SQLite supports completely different queries as opposed to SQL Server or other databases. Or if you do memory, everything is possible. And if you use SQL Server, not everything is possible. So you need really also these full integration tests.
All right. We have another one also from Urs. So thanks again, Urs. How do you prevent that test cases crosstalk through the database? Good question.
Yeah, but there are two ways. The one is so before you create a class feature, or even you can create for every test his own container. So you have isolation on the container level, or you create a database per test. So you have this, and yeah, I think this is two ways we can do it. But you can mess up if we use the same database in the two tests, and you will run into some funny results. That's true. Something to consider.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thank you. Last chance for any last question. Anybody? No?
Yeah, before everyone leaves here. So after this, we do. Did you stop the streaming?
No, not yet. It's still going. I did not
good.
stop. I wanted to give you the word exactly for this, so feel free.
Yeah, we have a very great next meetup coming up. It's with Irina Skrutu, and it's about embracing gRPC in .NET. So she's a very great speaker and speaking at major conferences. So we are happy to get her for the next meetup. And it would be great if you haven't signed up and you're interested in new technology, then sign up, and we will have fun at the next meetup. And after we stop the streaming, you can still stay on, and we have a more leisure chat with one another and do socialize.
Mm-hmm. One thing, I'm putting here on the chat the link to our next event. So if you have not subscribed, you can do that now. You can do that later as it will be online. So thank you, everybody. Now we will stop the streaming, but the session continues. So once we stop it, which is now